As I was planning for this session, I couldn't help but think about all the memes that have gone around over the years of all the things that are part of a teacher's job nowadays. So I think the last one I saw was a 2017 edition. So of course we've got a few more things on our plate this year, but I decided to write my own list as well to sort of respond to this idea of what's on our plate and maybe help take some of those things off. So here's my version of the things that you can do to survive teaching in a pandemic. Maybe these are things that we will translate into post-pandemic world and living as well. So we'll see how this goes. Number one, yoga pants are fine every day, every single day. If you want to wear them, they are there for you no matter what. Makeup will only make you break out under your mask. This is my face. Deal with it. This is not my usual face, by the way. At school with the mask on and very little makeup, definitely the way to go. Number two, choose a tech platform and stick to it. Organize it so you can find all the things. This is something that I'll get into in a deeper way as we go through this presentation. I'm sharing some suggestions for organization and also platform selection choices. Number three, make a choice and ride that wave. Changing your mind or plan all the time is grounds for breeding exhaustion in a best case scenario. In a pandemic scenario, we definitely are being asked to have our resources prepared and available for students in ways that we maybe haven't always had to in classroom living. It's not the time to change your plan at the last minute. In fact, making more choice or more changes happen can actually cause more stress for students as well as yourself. So this is the year to make a plan, ride the wave, see how it goes, and know that this is probably not the last class you'll ever teach, but maybe it's the last class you'll teach in a pandemic. Number four, choose your words wisely. As Maya Angelou says, people will not remember what you did, but they will remember how you made them feel. So that's the key thing here. If I have learned anything with all of the pandemic switching back and forth, it's that those small interactions might become very magnified because of the rarity of them at this stage of our reality. So think about as well in number five, people show stress in potentially surprising ways. Sometimes when you're seeing a reaction from a student or even a colleague, it's not their best version of themselves. We need to give people grace and not hold them to a poor choice made in a hard moment. That's not who they are all the time. Number six, name the emotion, tell the story, take away its power. So many of us felt so disconnected and isolated and alone in our experiences. And the reality is that we were not, we were just physically distant. And so socially distancing isn't maybe the term to use or rely on because it suggests that we should continue to be far apart socially. Really, physical distance is the key thing. Social connection is going to be a lifeline for so many of us through this process. So if you feel like you're the only one who's living through this, you probably haven't reached out to find out what's going on around. Number seven, pre-made communication cuts planning time. If you have a pre-made sub-plan that you can fill in the blanks every time that you need to use it, all of that information is already there for that other professional who can come and then be you in the classroom and know that they're supported. It will save them a hard morning if you have information like where to find the technology and how to use it, Google Classroom codes and things like that, where they might need to have access in new ways that are unfamiliar. If you have subs that you know, this makes life so much easier. If you have subs that you're not as familiar with, this can be even more of a vital lifeline and prevent some stressful mornings. Number eight, relationships are the most important part of being together. Kids can't learn when they're on emotional and social lockdown anyways. So if it's a stressful day, throw your lesson plan out the window sometimes because it's not going to happen if half of them are crying. It does happen. That is the reality that we're living in right now. And some of the most important days have been nothing to do with English, but everything to do with taking a few minutes to chat with a kid who just needs some support or just a reminder that this isn't forever. Relationships are the point of being together. So as much as you can, bringing this into the activities that are happening in your classroom and taking advantage of those moments will be a saving grace for the students as well, because they can be together in the building in the day and then they have to go home separately to their own houses. So something to think about just in the planning that you're making, in the plans that you're making, and we'll circle back to this later on. Number nine, the pandemic was different for everyone, Be graceful, be merciful, be kind. Some of us were living our best lives, going to the outdoors and finding ways to be active and sporty and eating paleo or keto or whatever the case may be. Some of us were neck deep in sweatpants on the couch with our faces in bowls of chocolate ice cream. And there's no wrong way to do this. We've never done this before, this pandemic thing. So whatever that looked like for you, whatever that looked like for other people, it's only part of the story. And probably once we start being a bit more curious, the judgment disappears as we find out what really was going on or how things were going. Number 10, eat when it's time to eat or you'll miss the window. This is a new thing. I love to, push my lunch and work through it and support students one-on-one and then snack as I go through the afternoon. It's not possible with the mask. It's not safe. It doesn't make sense to do it this way. So maybe one silver lining of this pandemic is that we actually start taking our lunch breaks when we're supposed to. Maybe that's just me. Drink more than you think you need. You're sweating under that mask all day long, for sure. Number 11, give feedback in person when possible. This is not the time for lengthy, written, time-consuming feedback. That's not really what students need from us at the best of times. It's difficult to navigate. It can be hard to understand. They miss your tone of voice. They miss your facial expression. They miss the gentleness with which you might extend some of these suggestions and pull back on the critical voice. Think about how you might make use of the time that you have them in front of you. FaceTime, conversations that happen in person, and even something simple like students writing down your feedback on a Post-it note can save you hours and give you your life back. Number 12, boundaries. Understand them, set them, uphold them. Maybe that's leaving at a reasonable time. Maybe that's not taking things home on the weekend. Maybe that is giving your students and yourself half the block to just play games and connect and talk. Whatever that is for you, when your boundaries have been breached, you are not effective for your students. So the ideal thing to have in place for yourself is a sense of what you will and will not allow. One change that I made years ago was to require students not to interrupt me during transition times. I want to answer their questions. I want to hear that they have to leave early. I want to know that they're not going to be here next week, but I don't want to know that right now, because right now I'm setting up for the 30 bodies that have just entered the classroom and maybe putting things away from the 25 bodies that just exited. So transition times for me became very sacred, and that was a boundary that once I had established it, students also felt the relief of not having to rush and make contact in a way that felt maybe hurried to them, and instead could actually have a break and go to the restroom or fill up their water bottle. So boundaries for you are boundaries for students. Everybody benefits, and that's one of the best things we can model. Number 13, grieving is normal. Our jobs changed, our careers changed, our connections changed, our family life changed, everything shifted overnight. And then, of course, we teachers, being the problem solvers of the universe, aren't we? We had this idea that we could just make that shift seamlessly and show up for the students, and we did. But in the shift, often things have been lost. Things have been overlooked. Things have been changed and made different in ways that we didn't expect or anticipate. And there is definitely room for having that time to grieve. And we haven't really had that dedicated time. Maybe you were feeling that in the summer or as September was looming, but grieving parts of your program that can't run right now because of distancing or sanitation reasons, having students who are masked up, whose faces you can't see and who you can't hear very well, the change in technology demands and putting ourselves out there on the internet, scary stuff. And this is not something that we chose actively. It was a direction that maybe some of us are going in education already, but for the grand majority, this is not our jam, and we are doing such a great job regardless. So if you're in that process of grieving, it might look like anger, it might look like sadness, it might look like anxiety, it might look like taking action and trying to control things that you have within your control, or so we believe. So grieving is definitely part of this process, and it's not for nothing. It might create some reflection and long-term change, but it's hard in this moment, and don't underestimate that stress and strain that can come along with it. Number 14, this is just for now. This is not forever. This is a mantra that I have started to repeat to myself most days and to my students whenever needed. We often forget, it feels like forever if you're a teenager and you haven't lived that long. But as adults know, things come and go and life changes and moves forward. So, planning for those future celebrations, focusing on the things that we can't wait to get back to, remembering that this is not a permanent state, nor will this change or hold people back forever. Learning is not linear, things can happen in ways that we don't expect. And number 15, you are free to choose. You can choose at any time to become a new version of yourself and the person you would like to be. Start fresh, build a life you love and want to inhabit. Hopefully, some of the design ideas here will help support you in those shifts. Way to go. Go get what you want.